Batgirl's been eating brains. You should look at the DC Direct DC Essentials Deceased Batgirl. DC Essentials is a line of 7-inch action figures based on DC characters with universal appeal, accessible to both longtime collectors or those just starting out, which delivers authentic detail from a company with 2 decades experience creating high-quality action figures. Based on the popular DC Comics miniseries from 2019, DCeased, this DC Essentials action figure series takes the most popular characters in the line and turns them into zombie-like creatures. I couldn't help but notice that Barbara seems hungry. I wonder what I should make her. I have meatloaf in the fridge, but Barbara's probably not going to want to eat the meatloaf. Nobody else is either. It's not very good meatloaf. Before we get a closer look, though, at Deceased Batgirl, let me stop and first thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did make this review possible by providing the sample of Batgirl that we can have a look at. First in inches, clickety-click, right to the very top, Barbara Gordon stands just about shy of 6 inches in height, or the figure's going to be roughly 15 centimeters tall. Just for the record, though, I didn't make the meatloaf. Sliding over, though, Batgirl and freeing up a little space next to her. We just recently had a look at the deceased Superman, so we'll bring him in for comparisons. Superman, notably, is taller than Batgirl. He's obviously a little bit more muscular as well. But I think the figures do stack well to one another, scale-wise at least. And, of course, they have one thing at least in common while they're not sharing the same bodies. They are seeming to share the same hunger. Hunger for delicious, fresh, juicy brains. Sorry, I was trailing off thinking about juicy brains. Unfortunately, though, Batgirl comes included with no display stand, nor does the figure come included with any accessories. It seems pretty much common practice, that all these DC Direct figures are without accessories, something I hope that they change in the immediate future. Not that I would necessarily expect accessories, like what would be the thing that you would want to really package along with Zombie Batgirl? Yeah, batarangs are fine, and yeah, you can grapple lines and stuff along those lines, but let's face facts, she has little to no interest in using any one of those things. The only thing she really does want to use are the things on the ends of her arms. That would be her hands. The hands themselves, as you can see, have been stained. Batgirl's been busy. You can see that there's quite a lot of blood, actually, and the blood itself seems like it hasn't dried. So Batgirl has just recently feasted. There's blood everywhere on this figure. I mean, obviously we can bring the arms down just for 1 second and get a good gander at the head sculpt here. I might actually say I like Batgirl maybe just a little bit more than the Man of Steel. I mean, not only does you have the open mouth here, and she has blood all over her teeth, Barbara got hungry, but as you can see, like, there's blood everywhere. She has a big gash there at the top of her head. She's got all this blood. It almost looks, judging by the way they've actually colored the blood, that at one point when she had died, the blood was sort of trickling down her face like this before she finally sat up and was alive again by the hunger of juicy brains. Once again, we can bring in Superman so you can see the comparison between the two. Yeah, again, like, while I like the Superman, and I do like the fact that they actually at least sculpted brand new expressions on their face, Batgirl, I think, does it just a little bit better. One thing that also works quite well to her is it looks like she's been dead for a lot longer, judging by the fact that the skin tone on her is actually a little bit more purple in tint than Superman's, which was a little more paler in complexion. Batgirl also, not only does she have the blood on her face, but it also seems like her eyes are quite vacant. I mean, look at those eyes. Other than the fact that they're brightly green, these tiny little pupils gives me the idea that, like I said, she's been dead for a very, very long time. And, like, the sculpting on this is so good. Turning the figure around so you can see the sculpting as well in the hair. Like, the hair isn't as impressive as maybe the paint that they afforded to the front of the figure. I mean, the hair kind of comes across a little on the more muddier side. I mean, there's kind of I guess you could say the hair has been sitting in blood or whatever else that she's been lying in this whole time. Yeah, maybe like the hair should be a little bit on the more dirtier, dingier side. She hasn't just recently washed her hair. That's not something that zombies are all that caring about at the moment. But yeah, it's a good looking head sculpt on Batgirl here. Definitely one of my favorites that they've done so far. Blood has also found their way onto the costuming. Now, I don't know what would be the best thing to get blood out of a costuming. Tide? Does Tide even advertise good for removing blood? I'm going to have to look at the label on a Tide. But yeah, there's blood like all over her costume. It's really masking at least half of the one side of her emblem here. The emblem is still actually, surprisingly, like her outfit is pretty clean. I mean, I don't know how much she's been crawling around and killing people, but I mean, like the purple on her costume still stays pretty clean and still pretty purple. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of darker colors where they've added like mud or caked on guts or anything else that she would have come across in her travels. The gloves are a little more on the dirtier side. You can see there's a few little splatters of blood, and again, like there's just a whole lot of it happening here on her hands. Yeah, she's been busy. She has been busy. Now for her utility belt, the thing about the utility belt is it's glued right here. This is still loose, as well as this on the side. And the probably reasoning why they did do it the way they did is so it wouldn't limit the articulation on the figure, which of course, obviously, we'll talk more about in a second. The boots, notably, are quite a lot darker and dingier. I mean, there are a few little areas I could say, like maybe like the paint could have probably been painted a second coat. But I mean, like it adds well to the whole idea that this character has just been walking around in grime and guts and all the other things. Even to the fact that they've actually painted the bottoms of her soles are all nice touches. And yeah, like she's got like blood on her knees. Like there's a lot of blood. There is a lot of blood here in Batgirl. The cape is a more softer plastic. What they've done is they've gone a more darker purple on the outside, and then like the yellow on the inside is again kind of more of an unfinished yellow. But again, like, I mean, to look at a character like this, the costuming isn't certainly going to be clean and pristine. There are going to be little elements. I probably would have added just a little bit of extra mud and even just finished it off nicely by doing that a little bit as well. I mean, there's the sculpting on the back of the figure's body. Like, I guess this would be one area too, like considering her cape would be covering the costume, and most of what the damage inflicted is going to be splattering the front of her costume, and then, yeah, it probably makes more sense that the back of her costume is still staying pretty clean on this figure. For the articulation on zombie Batgirl, her head does rotate all the way around. Even though she does have harder plastic here for the back of her hair, it still doesn't limit what you could do with the articulation on the head. Head rotates all the way around. You can have the head looking down, looking up, and you can also rock it back and forth as well. Shoulders comfortably come out, being they're on a pin and hinge joint. You can bring them out at about 90 degrees. You can take, again, those arms and rotate them all the way around. You can swivel at the bicep. You can double hinge on the elbow. I'm really glad to see that they are still using the double hinge on the elbows, and the hands do rotate all the way around. Upper torso is on a ball joint. This lower half, by the way, is just all sculpt. There's no, even though like you would almost think for a second like there could be a waist cut, it isn't. It's just this all one part right here is just all one solid chunk of plastic. Legs do split out. You take the legs and move them forward and back. Even like this side here that has like the, like, I don't know if that's like a little communicator sticking out from the bottom of her utility belt, but you can also still move these legs out very easily just because this is softer plastic and because they haven't attached it. Like if they attached it here, obviously you'd have a little more of a problem, but by keeping it loose the way that they did, you can easily move her legs out. Again, move them forward and back as well. She has a swivel cut here on the tops of her thighs. It actually hides better on this side because she does have a little band of yellow, again, with all this additional caked of blood. Again, she's got it also on this side too. This section here doesn't quite completely gel to me when it comes to the color scheme. Like this one's a little bit more of a darker purple than the lighter purple just above it, but again, it's not a deal breaker at all. There's a lot of off colors here happening for Batgirl anyways. She does have double hinge on the knee. She does have articulation here, which really doesn't attach to anything like a boot or anything. Like her boots clearly are much lower down than that. So like this swivel cut doesn't really necessarily aid the figure as much. I mean, because if she had a higher boot, then yeah, you could twist the foot back and forth. And I guess still you could twist the feet back and forth this way. She doesn't technically have articulation here, so the articulation really is doing the job further up. She does also have posability on the feet, forward and back this way, and an ankle pivot as well. So the figure does have some decent articulation. The only thing I could really be criticizing on this figure is like in some of the areas, like the yellow isn't the sharpest. Now, if this was just a regular non-zombied version of Batgirl, that would be an easier argument to make about the paint not quite delivering in the yellow department of things. But again, when it comes to Batgirl, being that this one is dead, being the fact that this one is a zombie after all, I can kind of dismiss the idea that the yellow isn't going to be as sharp or as finished as, say, if it was just a regular Batgirl. And then once again, we can bring in Superman. Loving this line so far. More and more zombies. Yes, please. Batgirl, again, between the two. I'm just going to bring Superman's head just up a little bit. Even though I am a big fan of Superman, I gotta say, like, the colors for zombie dead colors, at least, work a lot better for Batgirl. And unlike Superman, where he's only got just a little bit of blood on the top of it, costuming, and of course running down the sides of his face, Batgirl has been a lot busier, as you can clearly see by the staining, all the extra blood that she has all over her suit. One correction I want to make in final looks here for Batgirl is that, quote, gash that she has at the top of her mask. The more I look at it, the more I realize that that's her hair that's sticking out from the cowl. Simply just because it's red does not imply that it's always got to be blood and guts. No, that's Batgirl's hair instead. The blood and guts territory is fully covered here on Batgirl, as she's certainly showing what she's eaten. Generally, with my daughter, I can always look on her shirt and guess right away what she just has eaten. Oh, you ate a cookie. You've got crumbs all over the place. In this case, either Batgirl's been eating other people or she's gotten into the marinara sauce. I don't think she's gotten into the marinara sauce. While this one, yes, doesn't have, unfortunately, any accessories, nor she comes included with a display stand. You may notice right now I've got a display stand that is also from McFarlane Toys. As now McFarlane has taken the reins of DC Direct, following the tradition of releasing some pretty cool sculpted figures. As, again, mentioned already, I love the DC multiverse stuff, but as a purist, I always still go back. It's like my original love, DC Direct. DC Direct is always the stuff I loved collecting long before DC Multiverse was a thing. And again, I'm just glad to see that we're getting so much more DC Direct stuff. Truth be told, yes, this is probably something that could have waited well into October, being that it's more the Halloween season. We like to think more of zombies. Most of us tend to still think zombies all year round, but October's the better time to be doing it. But I certainly could not have waited to look at these, as they're a great line of figures. Now, they have not only done Superman, Batgirl, but they have also released a Supergirl, a Deathstroke, Red Hood, and Nightwing. All of those we will be looking at in upcoming videos, so if you are one that enjoys feasting on flesh, at least watching movies that do it, I don't hope that you're actually feasting on flesh, but if you are certainly into this kind of thing, make sure you're coming back to this channel, sticking around, because we will be looking at the rest of the line of the DC Essentials DCeased. Again, thanks to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of Batgirl that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. And if you're liking the content and certainly want to stick around for more, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notification. Popping up also at the very end of this video will also be a couple of playlists. If you have a little bit of time on your hands and you're not doing anything that's zombie related, let's hope not. And like I said, you want to check out some other videos, popping up at the very end of this video will be a playlist. Maybe even 2 of them, maybe even 7 of them. No, we only have space for 2 at the very end. Title card. As always, guys, thanks for watching. And make sure, of course, you're coming back to this channel. I'll see you guys next time.